in progress be vitiated.
Without objection.
And Mr. President, I ask unanimous consent that I speak as if in morning business for such time as I consume.
Without objection.
Mr. President, today I want to speak on where I think this climate change debate is headed after last Thursday's vote on the Murkowski resolution. We got a very clear signal in today's Politico, which reported that President Obama, in his Oval Office address tomorrow night, will seek as a part of the response to the BP spill to put a price on carbon. Let's keep in mind what a price on carbon is. That is a tax, a carbon tax, or what we call cap and trade. Quite often people have said, well, if those individuals really want to charge for carbon, want to stop this economy, why don't they just put a carbon tax on it? And the reason they don't is because then people would know how much it's costing them. And as it is now with cap and trade, they would not. But again, he's going to have an Oval Office. I think this is his first talk that he's given from the Oval Office since he's been in the president's office. Of course, that's the Washington speak for cap and trade, price on carbon. Now, this is remarkable. Here we have the most significant environmental disaster in our nation's history. And the president decides now it's time for cap and trade, a massive new energy tax paid for by consumers and working families and farmers and small businesses, a massive new energy tax that will destroy millions of jobs in good measure by sending many of them in places like China and India, a massive new energy tax that would make a gallon of gas more expensive, and a massive new energy tax that won't do anything to stop global warming, but will increase the size of government and give more money to politicians to spend. Now, just how that will contain the spill, mitigate the environmental damage, or help those immediately affected by it remains a mystery. Put simply, it won't do any of those things, but it will damage the economy and make it harder to deal with this crisis. We have a serious incident on our hands. People died, people's economic livelihoods are at stake, and the environment is being harmed. But instead of presidential leadership and clear direction, we're getting pure partisan politics. One glaring example is President Obama's moratorium on deep water drilling, something environmental groups have been seeking for many years. This is an exercise in overreaching that will do far more harm than good. The Louisiana Department of Economic Development estimates that the president's moratorium would kill 3,000 to 6,000 jobs in the next few weeks and over 10,000 Louisiana jobs in the next few months, and more than 20,000 jobs at risk in the next 12 months. Now, that's one example of just pure politics. And today, in a letter to supporters, we just got this, Mr. President. You may not be aware of this. This was a letter that went out today to the Obama supporters all across the nation. And it said, we're going to have a big meeting at the White House. And we're going to talk about moving forward on legislation to promote a new economy powered by green jobs, combat change, climate change, and our dependence on foreign oil. Now, down further in the letter, he says that the House of Representatives has already passed a comprehensive energy legislation. Let's remember what that was. That was the Waxman-Markey bill. That was a cap and trade bill, one that was a very, very expensive bill. And he says there's currently a plan in the Senate to do the same thing. Well, that's the Kerry-Lieberman bill that he's talking about. And we're going to talk about, so the whole idea of this meeting, and I understand that the speech that's going to take place tomorrow night is to try to promote an agenda, a very liberal agenda, an agenda that's been rejected. Cap and trade has been rejected by this legislative body since cap and trade, and well, since the Kyoto Treaty. That was way back in the late 90s. Then, of course, the 03 and 05 bills by McCain and Lieberman that would have been cap and trade bills, they were rejected. And every one of them since then, including the Warner-Lieberman bill and the other bills that we've had. Now, the interesting thing is here, every time a cap and trade bill comes up, it is defeated by a larger margin. And that's why I've been saying the cap and trade is is something that's dead in the Senate. Now, instead of presidential leadership, we're getting the rhetoric of the worst kind. A case in point, last week we heard that Murkowski's resolution is a big oil bailout that would allow oil companies such as BP to pollute the air. That must be news to thousands of groups across the country, because they certainly were very much in support of her resolution. I'm talking about people like the American Association of Housing Services for the Aging, Family Diaries USA, the Farm Bureau, the National Federation of Independent Business, the brick industry, National Association of Manufacturers, Associated Builders and Contracts, and the list goes on and on and on of the people who realize that they didn't want to have this massive government takeover. Let's keep in mind, when you talk about a cap-and-trade legislation, then you talk about what the EPA is talking about doing under the Clean Air Act, it's essentially the same thing. It's just that since they couldn't get it passed, that they're going to, and legislatively, they're going to try to do it administratively. And that's what the whole Murkowski resolution was about. It was about stopping that from taking place.